The reps and the order of the quarterbacks just don't matter during OTAs for the Browns. We'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast. I'm proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. What's really important at OTAs, especially when it comes to quarterback competition? Which quarterback has a leg up at the start of these practices, and some other things I'll be looking for in the weeks ahead at OTAs. I do want to thank you for being an everydayer at the Locked On Browns podcast, making this your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed with bonus content on some weekends, and it's totally free to you. Just hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, and of course the Locked On Browns YouTube channel, where you can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on anything we discussed today in the comment section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And yes, this is the start officially of OTAs this week for the Cleveland Browns. It is the first step, I like to say, in this march during the summer to training camp, and then eventually the regular season, which feels like it's getting closer and closer by the day. It is just around the corner. And I think what's interesting when we talk about this quarterback competition, I know how this is going to go. I know that if I share a video or some of my other media colleagues share a video on social media, it is going to get dissected like it's Zapruder film by every fan, everybody out there watching. This throw was bad. That throw was good. This guy's not doing very well. This guy's doing great. And that's just how these things go. I know there will be people who are keeping track of how many reps a player gets, or the order that the quarterbacks take reps from first team, second team, whatever. And keeping track of those things, charting it all and whatnot, and trying to make any brash draw any brash conclusions from it. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not worried about that stuff this time of year with the quarterbacks. It's not about, for me, how many reps a guy's getting. It's not about whether or not they're with the first team or the second team or whatever. We can kind of decipher where we think these guys are going to fall in those groups with those specific groups anyway. But for me, it's more about like how each quarterback is handling the opportunities, the reps that they get. What are they doing with them? Are they making the most of them? Are they productive with them? So there's some important key things I'm looking at, especially when it comes to rookies. Because somebody like Joe Flacco, who's played in this offense before, he knows what he's doing. He's a veteran in this league. He's won a Super Bowl. Again, he's familiar with the offense. He's familiar with Kevin Stefanski's concepts, what they want to do. He's going to probably look pretty comfortable with everything. He's going to know how to run it, which way you need to turn on a handoff, how to get in and out of the huddle. With the rookies specifically, though, I'm going to be watching those types of things. How are they getting in and out of the huddle? Are there mistakes that force them to rehuddle, or they have to run a play a second time because they screw something up? Are they able to direct their teammates to make sure they're in the right places? If somebody has a question, can they tell them, hey, this is where you got to be? And this applies to Kenny Pickett, I think, a little bit, because Kenny Pickett is playing in Kevin Stefanski's system for the first time, obviously, in his career. And so, and then are the plays being executed properly? I mentioned with with the Flacco example, are they turning the right direction on handoffs? Are they, if it's a boot play, are they booting? Are they able to go through their reads and make sure that the ball is getting out on time? There's a lot of, there's less emphasis. There will be some 11-on-11 work, but there's less emphasis on that during OTAs. It's going to be more about 7-on-7, 9-on-7. And when you're in those situations and you're not playing there's no pass rush, there's nobody bearing down on you. It's about the timing and the rhythm. Are you going through your progressions? Are you getting the ball out on time on a certain route that might be breaking one direction or the other? Are you delivering it accurately to that player? Those are the types of things I'm looking for, both pre-snap and post-snap, with these players. And I think all those things kind of fall into the same bucket in a sense of, listen, if those things are coming, if those things are on display, if those things are happening, it speaks to the ability for a player in those meetings that they're having, in the position group meetings, that it's like what they're learning, what they're reading in the playbook, what they're discussing in those settings is translating then to the field. It is something that's bearing out when they're out there on the field actually executing it. That's the important thing, I think, for me this time of year. And those are the types of things that I think need to be highlighted this time of year. It's not so much, you don't need to get so wrapped up in the results of any given play, whether it's a big touchdown or whether it's an interception. Now, if that stuff's happening regularly, like if you're in 7-on-7 work and it's like interception, interception, incompletion, like if you're doing it a number of times in a row, sure. But if they throw an interception on a play, shrug it. It's not the end of the world. I'm more curious about how they respond after those instances, after there's maybe a big mistake or a misread or something goes wrong. How do they come back out the next play and make amends? How do they come back out the next play and sort of resolve that issue and put it behind them? And are they learning from those things? Because that's what this setting specifically, this time of year specifically, is about. It's about learning. It's about getting a sense of, who are these guys? How much can they handle? What can they not handle? And the sorting out of who will win the job comes more down the line in training camp. That's the time of year to pay more attention to some of those other things that people tend to gravitate towards, the plays, the playmaking, who's in what's the order of the quarterbacks, who's getting more first team reps versus second team reps, who's first up. Like that's more, I think, appropriate at that time of year, especially because those are fully padded practices. Those are both sides of the ball going at it, giving you a simulated version of what you're going to see in a game, or at least the closest to it. It's always hard to replicate that to a T, as obviously as we know, but the training camp setting provides more of that than anything that you're going to get during OTAs. And so because of that, I think I highlighted the things that are most important, most prevalent, the things that you should be sort of noting from myself, other reporters who are going to be there on site, that stands out and what should be, what we should be paying attention to. Those are the key things. Those are the key elements. I know that I can say this though, and I know there's still going to be plenty of people who they see a Dylan Gabriel deep touchdown pass, and it's going to mean, oh, he's going to be the starter week 1. And I know that you could see a Shedeur Sanders incompletion, and it's going to be, well, this guy, no wonder he was a 5th-round pick. He stinks. Like, the people are going to try to draw those conclusions anyway. I think it's just the nature of the beast. It's the NFL. It is the excitement that comes with it. It's just the fanfare that comes with it. We try to dissect every little thing that we can and think it means something, try to decipher if it means something, even in little blips in moments that are shared on social media. It's the wrong way to go about it. I'm telling you that up front, but I know that's still going to happen even as I'm sitting here sort of telling you about the things that should be notable from these sessions. It's about learning. It's about applying what you're learning in the classroom settings to the field and seeing if these guys are picking up on it. And as far as the rookies are concerned specifically, for them, they've been basically NFL players for about, a month now? Like, there's a lot they're still sort of grasping and doing and learning on the fly. So don't read so much into the little segmented plays that are shown on social media. Focus more on what is being reported about, like how they look managing things, and if they're looking the part of being NFL caliber quarterbacks in the process and the execution of things, rather than, is it leading to a touchdown or an interception, and did this play look bad or did that play look bad? It's a learning experience. That's what this time of year especially is about, especially for those younger players. That said, I do think we will get an early indication of who has a leg up in this quarterback competition at OTAs in the coming weeks. I will talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. That's right. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same game parlay? You can also take moments or take props within a game in real time and turn them into a parlay, a live in-game parlay. Maybe it's from the Knicks Pacers series. We got a big game 5 coming up. Is it going to be a closeout situation that the Pacers complete, or is the series going back to Indiana? If you think Tyrese Halliburton has another triple-double in him, if you think Jalen Brunson's going to hit a game-winning shot, whatever it might be, you can bet on all those things, turn it into a same-game parlay in real time. It's all available to you in FanDuel. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today's episode is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work and taking pride in what you build and practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the all-stars are the hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver the things we all need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. Epicor ERP solutions are created by industry experts to help make every day easier. Seeing your whole supply chain is easier. Managing logistics is easier. Responding to price changes is easier. From small businesses with big dreams to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hard-working minute. Easier doesn't cut corners. Easier takes the lead. Discover your success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com. All right, so despite the fact that I don't think the order of the quarterbacks or the rep count is going to matter during OTAs, and I stand by that, I do think that we are going to get an early indication of which quarterback has a leg up in this room right now, because there are some questions there. I think there's an obvious familiarity with Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco has an obvious familiarity with the system. So I think he has a leg up in terms of understanding the offense and how to execute these things and what the expectation kind of is. But I also think that Kenny Pickett has a leg up in terms of how the Browns view and rank these quarterbacks in their minds. Now, Kevin Stefanski was on 92 The Fan here in Cleveland this past week, and he made a comment about knowing, having somebody in mind who is their frontline guy, like the guy at the top of the list that they feel is like that they do have he didn't call it a favorite, but he did allude to the idea that there's a leader in the clubhouse. And I think that's obviously very true. We're going to get the first glimpse of that in this setting. Like, yes, I do think like the first person up, Flacco, Pickett, like those two guys are going to get a chance to, because they're sort of established, already in this league, and it's the rookies who are still sort of learning a lot of these things. Pickett has to adjust a little bit to the new system and whatnot, but those two are going to be the first guys up, I would imagine, and you're going to get a sense of like how the team feels about them, what sort of situations they're putting them each in to try to compete. And for those two, it's about like who maybe gets. There's a little bit more of reading into those things that I mentioned than I think with the rookie quarterbacks specifically. But I think this also comes from this belief in Kenny Pickett being maybe the guy that the Browns are viewing as the frontline guy going into all this. It comes from the fact that he's the one quarterback they acquired via trade this offseason. That tells you something. If they were willing to trade draft capital the way they did, I know it was a 5th round pick, which isn't the end of the world, plus DTR, but if you were willing to make a trade like that, it suggests that you find value in that player. I don't care what the trade is. They felt value in him enough that they were like, hey, let's trade some assets. Let's trade some draft capital for this player. That's telling. So there's that aspect of it. I also think he and Andrew Berry, or Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, have both gushed throughout this offseason about Kenny Pickett, about their belief in him, about the fact that they think he is a good fit for what they want to do. Now, some of that was they were asked specifically about Kenny Pickett, but there has been a couple unprompted moments in talking about the quarterback competition that they've raved about Kenny Pickett. There's been there's been some solid reporting done on the fact that this organization feels or thinks pretty highly of Pickett at this juncture. And the way that I sort of look at this, my understanding is, you look at what happened with Sam Darnold last year in Minnesota. I think Sam Darnold is somebody the Browns probably would have highly considered if finances were different. If the cap situation was different, I think they would have probably explored a Sam Darnold deal a little bit deeper than they did, because they knew they were going to get priced out of any sort of pursuit of him. But I think that's the exact type of player that Kevin Stefanski would want. Somebody who can just run an offense efficiently. He did it in Minnesota for Kevin O'Connell last year, and he revived his career in that way by doing so. And I think the Browns view Kenny Pickett in a similar ilk, where they believe, hey, and I talked about this, right? When they were setting up this quarterback room, it was always going to be veteran guy that's been around for a while, that's established, that you just kind of know what you're going to get. That's Joe Flacco. Veteran who maybe his career's dwindling a little bit, or he's going to get one last shot, or you think he's going to be your basically a reclamation project. That's Kenny Pickett. And then whatever rookie or rookies they were going to take in the draft, and they ended up taking two guys in the third and fifth round, obviously, in Dylan Gabriel and Jador Sanders, that they hope turn into something for them. But while they're developing, they have these other two guys there sort of duking it out at the top. And again, because of how they've talked about Pickett, because of the fact that they traded for Pickett, and because of the fact that I think they love the idea of, hey, let's get this guy in here who's done some things, but has maybe a second chance here to start and lead a team, and it's going to be for us. I think they feel pretty highly about doing what the Vikings did with Sam Darnold with Kenny Pickett, and him being this guy that they sort of nurture back into having a future in the NFL. I think that's how they see this thing. So I do think he'll be first up in a lot of the drills this time of year. I think he'll enter training camp as the sort of lead horse of the group, if you will. And it'll be up to Joe Flacco to sort of change their mind in terms of maybe convincing them that he should be the starter if they're going to ride with a veteran at the start of the season. Now, I talked yesterday about the idea that I think it actually makes more sense to start a rookie. And if you're either going to split the season with them, you get as many games as possible under their belts so that you can truly evaluate like what you have at that position going into next year's draft, because that's the goal, in my estimation, for this upcoming season. Now, you could push back on that and say, well, you got to start the season with a veteran to sort of tell the group like, hey, we're the team to signal to the team that you are trying to be competitive. And I can wrap my head around that too. I think that's ultimately what they're going to do. But if I'm deciding between the two rookies just before I've even seen them at OTAs, which again, as maybe you're listening to this, I'm probably out at the practice field right now watching some of this unfold. I do think Kenny Pickett, just based on what I've heard, based on the way that they acquired these quarterbacks, I think he's going to be the lead guy that sort of takes, that they're prioritizing. I shouldn't say prioritizing, because I do think they're going to have pretty even splits with the reps. Again, I'm not tracking them, but I think the reps are going to be pretty evenly split. And I do think him and Flacco will take the majority of reps with the first team. But I think that Pickett is the one that they are hoping sort of emerges from all this, and the guy that is the quote unquote leader in the clubhouse, if I had to pick one. That doesn't mean it can't change. Again, going back to what I said, it's about what each player does with their reps this time of year, coming on down the pike here at mandatory minicamp in a couple weeks, and then beyond that at training camp. That's where the job will be won by somebody. But right now, I do think that this organization feels very, very highly, or thinks very, very highly, I should say, of Kenny Pickett, and believe that he has a chance to ultimately be their starter week one. And I think that's going to be what the situation looks like. How they handle these things, how they handle these drills, and how they handle the quarterback rotation is going to suggest that as well. And we'll see if that's true as the OTAs kind of progress here in the next couple weeks. But that's kind of just my read on the situation at this juncture. Going away from the quarterbacks, there's going to be some other. I know that's going to be the topic of the topic du jour, if you will. That's going to be the thing everyone is paying the most attention to. But there's other things that you got to be paying close attention to at OTAs. I will share what those are coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. All right, so we talked plenty about the quarterback competition, and I know that that's where most people, the attention is going to be, right? What do the quarterbacks look like? What are they doing? We only have one day out there for each of these OTA sessions, each like the 3-day sessions they have, that we get a chance to watch. So we're sort of taking in a lot all at once. But I am going to prioritize checking out a couple other things as well, because, as much as the quarterback competition is the most important thing, there are some other things that I think are interesting that have to sort of sort themselves out or play out, and that I think you sort of make mental notes of, especially this time of year. Remember, there's no full pads, so this is like guys in helmets and knee pads and whatever, and that's about it. And you're going out and you're running around and you're doing some things, but it is the first time that you get the rookies with the full team. So rookies and veterans, going head to head in certain drills, whether it's receivers versus the secondary, running backs versus linebackers, those types of things. You're going to get a chance to sort of see some of that. Are they running around with the veterans and can they sort of hold their own? Or are they getting are the veterans, using some of their savviness to get the better of them? So how those rookies kind of look, how they stack up with their fellow teammates that they're being sort of integrated into. Somebody like Mason Graham, what does he look like on a defensive front that obviously has Myles Garrett on it? And, how are those guys sort of interacting and showing already at this stage? Carson Schlesinger, what does he look like? I didn't get a chance to watch a ton of him during rookie minicamp, so I want to see like his ranginess as he's making plays during some of these 7-on-7 and 11 on and some of the 11-on-11s and on some of the 9-on-7 drills. Like, is he running around making plays? Is he able to show that ranginess that he brings to the table? What is Harold Fannin Jr. going to look like as maybe a second tight end in this offense? And can he make plays against some of these guys in coverage? Like, those are little things and nuances that you look for, even in this setting without full pads, where you get the rookies and the veterans all out on the field together. And so I'm kind of going to keep an eye on how they sort of stack up with that. Similar to the quarterbacks, are the concepts of the offense being executed effectively? And all I mean by that is, like, it starts at the quarterback, but I talked yesterday about a number of position battles that are going to kind of play out here. And like at wide receiver, for example, are the receivers that are not named Jerry Jeudy, picking up elements of the offense and where they have to be and the things they have to do and the routes they have to run, or are there miscommunications there? How is that stuff sort of coming together? And just in general, is the offense executing? Because let's face it, like last year, there were signs that the offense was going to be as bad as it was, because during training camp, there was a lot of bad moments. There was a lot of false starts. There was a lot of pre-snap penalties. There was a lot of just mistakes. There was a lot of bad misses on passes and miscommunications. Everything was bad. And it should have been a sign that it was just going to be ugly by the time the season started. I think we all, or many of us, kind of assumed like, yeah, they'll get it together by the time the season begins. And that never actually ended up being the case. And it was a disaster then, and it was a disaster starting week one. So what does that offense look like? Are things being run effectively and executed effectively? Early stages of that, obviously, because training camp's the bigger barometer, but I want to see how those things sort of bear themselves out. The health of injured players is another thing to keep an eye on. DeJuan Jones is coming back from broken fibula. Alex Wright was out last year with the torn tricep. Cedric Tillman had the concussion that held him out for a bunch of games. That's not something that necessarily you'll see like the full effects of, but like, just what does he look like getting back out there for the first time? Because we haven't seen Cedric Tillman in a really, really long time. His last game he played was week 12 of last season. So it's been a while since we've seen somebody like Cedric Tillman, and I'm curious to see just like what he looks like running around out there, especially in a year where he is expected to take another major leap, if you will, for this franchise and sort of cement himself as the number 2 wide receiver, opposite of Jerry Jeudy. Anyone experimenting in different roles, kick returners, you start to sort of see what that's going to look like. I would imagine DeAndre Carter is sort of first up in that regard, because that's why they signed him. He was brought in to be that kick return specialist, and that's what he's done throughout his career. But is anybody else rotating in there? What are some of the other, extra special team roles that are being filled by certain guys on this roster? So keeping an eye on those types of things, I think are notable as well. And then going back to just the position battle stuff, the rotations at certain spots. Offensive line, for example, Joe Bitonio generally isn't there during OTAs. I would imagine that's going to be the case again this year. So, without him out there, what does that look like? Is Zach Zinter sort of filling in? And what does Zach Zinter look like going into year 2? A guy that they, I think, hope can be the next great guard in this offense, on this offensive line, once somebody like Joe Bitonio likely retires, potentially at the end of the season when his contract's up. So there's a lot of things to sort of sort out there. But also, as I mentioned with DeJuan Jones coming back from injury, he's going to be first up on the at the left tackle spot. How does he look there? Because, like, frankly, he got a handful of games under his belt last year, but it wasn't enough to like decipher anything specifically about whether or not he can play the position effectively. And so he's going to sort of be learning on the fly there a little bit and trying to continue what he showed on tape last year. And we'll see if he can cement himself as that guy, or somebody like Cornelius Lucas is going to take that from him as a swing tackle that played a lot of left tackle last year. So there's some things on the offensive line. There's some rotations on the defensive line. You know, Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, those two duking it out for the defensive end spot opposite of Myles Garrett. Obo Okoronkwo, what does his role look like? And those rotations are so important in Jim Schwartz's defense, so getting a sense of where those are at. And then I obviously mentioned wide receiver already, and with Cedric Tillman trying to cement himself as the number 2 guy. But like Deontay Johnson's in the mix there. And then after that, this wide receiver room is just an assortment of, you know, unproven commodities, unproven talents. What are you getting from David Bell? He shows a little bit of promise last year before an injury. Jamari Thrash in year 2. Like, what's he bring to the table? Some undrafted free agents in this room. You have Michael Woods II in this room. Like, are any of these guys going to take a step, or any of these guys going to seize an opportunity to find a role within this receiver room that is probably one of the weaker position groups on the team right now? And those are the things that start to sort of take shape this time of year. So that is kind of an assortment of things that I'll be paying attention to. Again, keep in mind, don't use OTAs or let OTAs be like an end-all be-all for anything, whether it's the quarterback competition or whether it's any of these other position battles or anything else going on, because it's still early in this process. There's a long way to go, and training camp is where more of that stuff sort of sorts itself out and rises to the top. So another episode down with you, Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. Plenty more to come this week, including my thoughts after we get to watch these guys out in the field for the first time this spring. Very much looking forward to it. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to make Locked On Browns your first listen every single day. For a second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting, or you can keep it local. Check out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being in every day with the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See you.